Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Maple Conservative Girl podcast. My name is Danica, and today I am talking about Prime Minister Mark Carney's latest MOU with Alberta. I'm talking about his announcement that Canada will somehow double its electricity grid by 2050, which honestly, what? And why is Ottawa still refusing to repeal the anti-energy laws that scared away investment in the first place? Will this pipeline actually get built, or is Carney just stalling? Even people connected to the Pathways Alliance project are now pushing back against the government's approach because the truth is, it brings nothing of value to Canadians who can barely afford to eat, heat, or house themselves. So if you like this episode, please subscribe and share with somebody who you think might benefit from listening to this, and let's get right into it.
We've created a new agency, Build Canada Homes, to drive affordable home building at a pace not seen in generations. Over $50 billion to our Build Communities Strong Fund, for hospitals to hockey rinks. And a new defense industrial strategy that will catalyze $500 billion in investment in Canada over the next decade. Now, the third lesson that we must take from the current rupture is our sovereignty, our sustainability, our prosperity will depend on our ability to supply and control our energy. We have to unlock Canada's full potential as an energy superpower. As the head of the International Energy Agency, Fatih Birol, said just last week, Canada has, and I quote, a golden opportunity to build a more sustainable and reliable energy system. This will require bold investments, practical solutions focused on results, not rhetoric, and the full force of a united Canada working together. Working together to build a stronger, more resilient, more independent Canada that works for all. That's our mission. And as the Minister just said, central to that mission, is more electricity. As our industries expand, our economy grows, AI accelerates, electricity demand in Canada is expected to double by 2050. So we will double our grid. That's the headline. Canada will double its electricity generation over the course of the next 2 decades. Because the path to affordability is electrification. The path to competitiveness is electrification. The path to net zero is electrification. Electrification underpins everything. Our emissions, our environment, our economy.
What a load of BS. I don't even know where to start with this announcement. Another announcement that will do absolutely nothing for Canadians in the here and now. Always another announcements for something abstract in the future. I've been saying this over and over and over again. He doesn't care about Canadians. He cares about his net zero agenda, which I argue will impoverish us little people, the little peasants. Always patting himself on the back for his announcements, his grand announcements, and the media drools all over his nothingness. He brags about $50 billion, over $50 billion for Build Canada Homes, which has done what exactly? Has it helped in any way, shape, or form with the housing crisis Canada's currently facing right now? Our sovereignty, sustainability, our prosperity will depend on our ability to supply and control our energy. We must unlock Canada's full potential as an energy superpower. Those are his words. Is he for real right now? If that were true, if he really believed that, he would repeal the anti-energy laws that the Liberals put in place. But he won't do that. We all know that he won't do that. Carney said last year that Canada needs another major bill to build projects at speeds not seen in generations, and the Conservatives helped pass it quickly. And still, nothing but consultations and talks have been done, which, by the way, how much are these consultations costing Canadian taxpayers? If the goal is to actually get projects built faster, why not start by repealing the anti-energy laws already choking investment? Why create another layer of bureaucracy when Ottawa can simply remove the barriers it created in the first place? I'll tell you why. Because they don't actually want prosperity, so it seems. For years, governments in Ottawa have piled on regulations, lengthy approval processes, emissions cap, and legal uncertainty that have scared away billions in private investment. Major energy projects have either been cancelled, delayed for years, or forced through political obstacle courses. I mean, these obstacle courses are so complicated that investors just take their money elsewhere, usually to the United States. Elbows up, right? On one hand, the government says Canada is an energy superpower. On the other hand, it keeps restricting the very industries that made us one. But in Mark Carney's mind, does net zero make us an energy superpower? Because that's what it seems like when he says that we're an energy superpower. What exactly is he talking about? Because net zero is not going to make us an energy superpower. That is just complete nonsense. Everyone wants cleaner energy. Like Canadians, like we love our country, right? We have the most beautiful country in the world. We want to keep our environment clean. But how are we supposed to afford life today? These globalist elites, which Mark Carney claimed he said that he was a globalist elite, but that's exactly what Canada needs right now. Really? Do we really need that? Because he is obviously so globalist elitist that he is so disconnected with actual Canadians, who are working 3 jobs just to be able to put a roof over their heads. The government keeps talking about massive transformations decades into the future, while ordinary Canadians are struggling with groceries, rent, mortgages, and energy bills in the present moment, today. Carney says Canada should use its resources because we're an energy superpower, and he's right about that. We are a superpower, so why are we refusing to act like one? If Canada truly wants economic strength, jobs, and energy security, as he says, why is he still hesitant to fully open the door to private investment in pipelines and resource infrastructure? Why are we making it harder for Canadian energy to reach global markets while other countries expand production and profit from it? Why are they trying to tell us how to drive, what to drive, how to heat our homes? Control. How does he know what's going to happen in 2050? Nobody can predict what's going to happen in 2050. Why is he making an announcement about 25 years from now? Here is the reality. You cannot build a prosperous economy on abstract promises of the future. Net zero by 2050. Doubling our energy grid by 2050 sounds visionary in a speech, but that's literally all it is. That's literally all he ever does. Give speeches that sound like, wow. But in the end, he's announcing nothing. Like literally nothing, and bringing nothing of value to actual Canadians. People living paycheck to paycheck want to know what happens next month. Not just what might happen in like 25 years. Who cares about what's going to happen in 25 years when rent's due in 2 weeks? Why are they shoving this net zero down our throats and telling us that we basically need to switch up our entire economy and make us Canadians pay for this transition? These carbon taxes, these carbon credit systems. Why do we have to follow the net zero rules? Why are we even headed in this direction? Oh, because the future is net zero. How do you know? How do you know? I mean, you're subsidizing EV companies that are going bankrupt. Like, the market is not there. Oh, but it will be in the future. How do you know? How do you know? You don't know. You just want it because you're invested in it. We would offset, if we were net zero, we would offset global emissions by 1%. What a joke. While the whole rest of the world, with the exception of Europe, and just look at where they are, do not care. Nobody cares about net zero. How about we actually start acting like an energy superpower that we could be by opening up our oil and gas, bringing prosperity to this country, by giving people jobs, bringing in private investors who will have to pay taxes, who will support these programs and healthcare and all this kind of stuff. Like, the government just wants their hands in absolutely everything. We could be selling our oil and gas to nations that open up coal-fired plants every other week. The world runs on oil and gas now. Stop talking about 2050. Who cares about 2050? Seriously, Canadians don't care about some abstract, untangible thing in the future. 24 years from now. What are you doing right now? Your announcement is nothing. What are you doing right now? And let's be honest about the scale of this proposal. Doubling the electricity grid would require enormous amounts of money, land, permitting, materials, labor, and public subsidy. Canadians deserve transparency about what that will cost and who will pay for it. But they're consulting, guys. They're in the consultation period. We all know who will pay for it. It's us. Meanwhile, private investors are ready to build projects that create jobs now. Pipelines, LNG facilities, energy corridors, like all these CEOs of all these major energy companies are saying that they don't want to invest in Canada because of, like, it's uninvestable. They would rather go to America. But elbows up, everybody. That's like, I don't understand how the elbows up crew is okay with these big energy projects moving to the United States or people investing in the United States because Canada is like a desert. These projects that these investors want to build, pipelines, LNG facilities, all of those kinds of things, these are tangible economic engines. They generate revenue, strengthen the dollar, support pensions, and help fund healthcare and infrastructure and all these kinds of programs that the government wants. Conservatives, we're not against clean technology. We're against unrealistic policymaking that ignores affordability and economic competitiveness. We believe in all of the above strategy. Develop our natural resources responsibly, expand energy exports, encourage innovation, and let markets, not the governments, the planners, the elites sipping on champagne in boardrooms, we don't want them to be the ones to drive investment. We want the market, we want the government to get out of the way so that the market can speak for itself. And if nobody's buying EVs, why are we subsidizing these EV companies? Why are we pushing towards doubling our energy grid when, like, we're not even buying EVs? We don't want this. We want a pipeline to the West Coast so that we can expand our oil and gas sector. That's what we want. The future of Canada should not be built on slogans. And that's exactly, liberals always say that Pierre Poilievre has no plan and he's all full of slogans. Well, Mark Carney is basically just, all he is slogans. He's brought nothing of value to Canadians. Canada should be built on growth, opportunity, and policies that actually make life more affordable for Canadians today. If you genuinely want nation-building projects at historic speed, then unleash the sectors capable of building them. Repeal policies that discourage pipelines, LNG terminals, refineries, and resource development. Give businesses certainty. Shorten approval timelines. Let private capital do what it's ready to do. Because Canadians, we are tired of hearing governments talk about growth while actively blocking the industries that create it. And this matters beyond politics. Our energy sector funds public services, supports hundreds of thousands of jobs, strengthens rural communities, and gives Canada geopolitical leverage in a world desperate for reliable energy. And not only that, it would give us leverage in our trade negotiations with the United States, but Mark Carney has said that he's not going to use our oil and gas sector or our resources as leverage with the United States, which is so stupid. If we do not supply it, other countries will, often with lower environmental standards than ours, by the way. Would you rather buy oil and gas from Saudi Arabia or from Canada? So when Carney says he wants to build faster than we have in generations, which he has not, Canadians should ask, Faster for what? More government-managed programs decades away into the future, or faster approvals for projects that could boost wages, investment, exports, and affordability right now? Which is not what the government is doing.
That there are multiple preconditions for that pipeline moving forward. It includes strengthening the carbon market. It includes the methane regulations that the minister helped put in place and have been put in place now. It includes very much the Pathways project moving forward. No pathways, no pipeline.
No pathways, no pipeline, everybody. A laundry list of things that need to get accomplished before building prosperity in this country. Do as I say, and you will get what you want. Except everything that he wants is, like, unattainable. This is terrible leadership. Seriously, it's authoritarian in so many ways.
Alberta, year after year, has $20 to $25 billion that is siphoned out of our system to go to Ottawa so that it can be spent mostly in Quebec, but also in other places that vote Liberal. We have been watching this for years. $600 billion in the last 40 or 50 years that have been taken out of this province. You don't think we might be able to do a little bit more on social spending if those $20 to $25 billion stayed here? You don't think we'd be able to cut taxes a bit if those $20 to $25 billion stayed here? It is $5,000 per Albertan that every single year gets transferred out of this province for political reasons so that the Liberals can continue to spend it in places that vote Liberal. That is what is happening in the province and in the country.
Let's just call it as it is. Alberta funds this country. If we didn't have Alberta, we would have what? Some hypothetical clean energy grid? Hydro-Quebec? Please. And that's why you see a growing desire amongst Albertans to become their own country. And instead of listening to these people, the government walks all over them, saying that they will phase out oil and gas, basically saying that they will phase out Alberta's industry, Canada's industry. The government has been taking advantage of Alberta for so long, and now there's over 300,000 signatures for a referendum. And what happens?
Hi, Premier Jean-Emmanuel Fortier with Radio-Canada. Off-topic question of the announcement today. Will you put the referendum question to the ballot as a government question after the ruling today by Justice Leonard?
Well, although our government does support Alberta remaining in Canada, we think that today's decision by the court will deny opportunity to well over 300,000 Albertans to have their petition verified by Elections Alberta. We think that this decision is incorrect in law and anti-democratic, and we will be appealing it as a result. Our cabinet and caucus will, of course, be meeting in the next couple of days to discuss the full context and make some decisions after we've had a chance to talk it through.
The fact that there are hundreds of thousands probably of Albertans who believe that should have been put to a question as well, and the fact that the justice decided that there needed to be consultation. It's unclear what that means exactly in the future. What does it say about the fact that independence movements, or just the question of independence movements in Canada moving ahead? Is Canada, I don't know, a prison that you can't get out of with any other means?
Well, I guess we will have to talk with our Quebec counterparts to see what they think about this kind of ruling. I would say that it is a single judge who's made a decision, and we have now 700,000 Albertans, whether they're on the Remain side or the Leave side, who've said that they want to have this public debate. So our citizen initiative petition was always meant to be very permissive, and we kept on having to modify it to ensure that that permissive quality was in there. We want to hear from Albertans. That's what we think democracy is. And we'll be meeting with our caucus and cabinet to further review the decision and decide next steps. But as I say, since we believe that this one is incorrect in law and anti-democratic, we will be.
An Alberta judge, one appointed by Justin Trudeau's Liberals, surprise, surprise, has now cancelled the citizen-led separation referendum petition, arguing that the province failed to consult First Nations before the process moved forward. And whether you support separation or oppose it, Canadians should be deeply concerned about what this means for democracy. More than 300,000 Albertans signed that petition. 300,000 people participated in a legal democratic process, and now a court has effectively said that the conversation itself cannot even proceed without prior consultation requirements being satisfied. Of course, the government and the Liberals never took Alberta's separatist movement seriously because they maybe didn't think it was ever going to come to this many Albertans wanting to go to a referendum. And now, over the last couple of days, that's all the media has been talking about, and now they shut it down. And here's the bigger issue. Many Canadians are starting to feel like democratic participation is becoming conditional. If citizens vote the wrong way, sign the wrong petition, or raise the wrong issue, suddenly the system will find a reason to shut it down. We live in a two-tiered society here. And even Premier Danielle Smith called the ruling anti-democratic and vowed to appeal it. Again, this is not about whether Alberta should separate or not. Most Canadians, including a lot of Conservatives, likely want the country to stay together. The issue is whether citizens are allowed to discuss major constitutional questions openly through democratic processes without courts shutting the door before the debate even begins. But we all know that they can't have this referendum go through. Alberta is the cash cow of the country. They subsidize us, and the government just walks all over them. Alberta's trust in institutions is collapsing, and so is Canadians' trust in institutions. And politically, decisions like this may actually fuel the alienation that they're trying to contain. When people feel ignored economically, overregulated politically, and dismissed, blocking democratic expression doesn't make frustration disappear. It intensifies it, which is what you saw back in 2022 with the truckers. And that's why we're also seeing Mark Carney's announcement today with Danielle Smith about a pipeline.
Of course, Alberta is the one proposing the pipeline or bringing forward a private proponent for the pipeline. So that's a process that's underway with them. I will leave it more to them to be more explicit in terms of the answer, but certainly their expectation, and it shows in terms of the effort that's been put into the agreement, the specificity around the agreement, the timelines for the agreement. The expectation is that that will be the case. And then what follows from that is there's a sequencing, there's a consultation sequencing with Indigenous peoples. There's a work with the province of British Columbia, moving through those and moving to that October date. And I just want to be very clear to everyone, you have moving towards a designation, if various things are met, designation by the major project office as a nation-building project. But then there's a process of consultation to determine the conditions around that project as well. And to answer your question, through all of that, a private proponent can be building out the open season, if you will, the backstop of the barrels associated with that.
Just a bunch of word salad here. Like, always just talking and talking and talking and talking, just a bunch of words that mean nothing. Answer the question. But listen to what he actually said. They are announcing a pathway, keyword, pathway, to a new West Coast pipeline that could begin construction by 2027. Right now, just consultations. Red alarm bells should be going off in your head every time our Prime Minister says consultation, because what does that mean? And who's paying for it? I'll tell you what it means. It means nothing. It means literally nothing. On paper, that sounds like a major shift, like, wow, an announcement coming for a new pipeline. Like, we've been waiting for this, we've been talking about it, and is a pipeline coming? Please, we all know it's nothing more than an announcement that will bring nothing to Canadians. It's just to please Albertans who want to separate. But does this sound like a pipeline win for Alberta and for the country? No. Mark Carney is focused more on doubling our energy grid by 2050, 25 years into the future. Get out of the way and let private investors build a pipeline. Conservatives have been calling for this kind of infrastructure for years. Maybe that's why they don't want to build it. But net zero, everybody. Clean energy. We're a superpower. What a load of garbage. And he thinks we're stupid. They're laughing at us, literally. They are laughing at us because all of these announcements, these so-called trade deals, like he's accomplished nothing but large announcements saying that, oh, we've done this and we've done that and affordability is the greatest it's ever been, guys. No, it's not. You've done nothing. And these Canadians who think Mark Carney is the best thing since sliced bread and that he's some economic wizard genius that's going to take us out of this crisis and that he's doing a great job. I don't believe these people have their heads screwed on properly. Like, they're hypnotized by his grand announcements when really he's brought, like, what is it really doing? Like, he's doing nothing. This grand announcement is more of the same. Nothing. I would put my hand on fire that this pipeline will not get built as long as this man is in power, which is all he cares about. He is literally willing to impoverish an entire nation for net zero when we have billions of wealth right under our feet. He spits in the faces of Albertans and tells them all to sit down and shut up while he talks about phasing out oil and gas for some abstract possibility of doubling our energy grid by 2050, 25 years into the future, like a possibility in the future. His net zero plan will impoverish all of the little peasants that he reigns over. But here's the question Canadians should ask right now. What exactly is being built? And what barriers are actually being removed so that building can actually start? The answer is none. Zero. It's all for show. This announcement is basically, hey, we'll allow a private investor to build in Canada if you follow our ridiculous rules, consulting Indigenous bands over and over and over again, carbon taxes, pathways, which Brookfield is connected to, which he is invested in, but the blind trust, right? This announcement is not a shovel in the ground. It's an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, again, between Ottawa and Alberta, laying out a process and a timeline that will not happen at all. Alberta is expected to submit a full proposal by Canada Day this year, and Ottawa says it could designate the pipeline as a project of national interest by October. Let me tell you something. This pipeline is a project of national interest, okay? It doesn't have to go to like the office. We all know that it would bring prosperity to this country. If all of that happens, construction could start as early as September 2027. Yet, how many projects in 1 year have been approved by the Projects of National Interest Office? Zero. None. But even Carney admitted the pipeline would have to be privately built and privately financed, except he's not removing the anti-energy laws, and Alberta has to find the proponent willing to take the risk. Who's going to take the risk when all these laws are still in place? If the federal government is serious about building a pipeline, which they are not, why not repeal the anti-energy laws that scared away investors in the first place? How is Alberta supposed to find an investor for this project? Why create another special framework when Ottawa can simply just eliminate the regulatory maze that made major projects nearly impossible here in Canada, which is why we've seen a brain drain and an investment drain down to America. Elbows up, elbows up. For years, Alberta has argued the federal laws and regulations, things like Bill C-69, emissions caps, tanker restrictions, and overlapping environmental reviews, created uncertainty so severe that capital fled Canada. Premier Danielle Smith has repeatedly referred to those as Ottawa's bad laws. So has Pierre Poilievre, because they're bad laws. Now, suddenly, after years of resistance, the federal government wants credit, a pat on the back for supporting a pipeline while still keeping much of the same regulatory structure in place and basically announcing nothing. And look at the conditions attached to the deal. Alberta agreed to a long-term industrial carbon pricing framework. The province also committed to methane reduction targets and major carbon capture investments tied to the oil sands. There are still constitutional consultation obligations with Indigenous communities. There's still opposition from British Columbia, crazy radical David Eby. There are still debates over tanker bans on the West Coast. So Conservatives are right to ask if Canada truly needs energy infrastructure for economic growth and energy security, why not just clear the runway? Why not repeal the legislation that delayed projects for a decade? Why not streamline approvals permanently instead of creating one-off political exceptions? Because they want to decide what gets built in Canada. They want to have their hands in everything. Investors want certainty. They don't want a government that says yes in a press conference while leaving the same legal and regulatory obstacles sitting on the books. And Canadians should remember, private capital goes where governments are predictable. And if Ottawa genuinely wants Canada to become an energy superpower, again, the solution is not another announcement. It's just getting out of the way. It's removing the barriers that made investments stop believing that Canada was open for business.
When we talk also about some of the concerns surrounding this, we know that pathways, a carbon price, and a pipeline, they're interlinked, really, as far as Ottawa is concerned. We've seen that when we heard from the Prime Minister as well yesterday. You know, you put in time into creating pathways, but now you feel like that should be postponed. But you also just touched on how there's been this major shift as well in the global economy. How does this all fit in to what we're seeing unfold here?
Well, and the massive changes geopolitically as well as North America are the reasons why I have now recommended that we put a pause on the pathways, on the carbon capture and storage part of the Pathways Initiative. That would be billions of dollars, billions of taxpayer dollars. That's you and me and all your viewers. Taxpayer dollars, both at the federal and provincial level, and also billions of private sector dollars going into a massive project that puts carbon into the ground, does not generate any revenue. When we put, and I do find that hard to say. I mean, I was one of the creators of the Pathways project, and so it's not an easy thing for me to say at this point. But when we started that project in 2020, the world was very, very different. Then we had the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the second one, by the way, in 2022. That started to change things in terms of global recognition of energy security issues. Then, of course, we had Donald Trump elected, and that's created extraordinary North American pressures in terms of what Canada needs to do. And then, of course, just one thing after another geopolitically. And so Canada really has, we've had a wake-up call. We need to spend billions of dollars on national defense, on economic diversification, on trade infrastructure. We don't have unlimited resources in Canada. And so from my perspective, it really was, look, if we're going to spend billions of dollars on something, let's spend those billions of dollars on the things that we need more immediately. Pathways, carbon capture and storage doesn't hit that list in my view right now. It may in the future, and I take no pleasure in saying we need to put a pause on this. But we do have other priorities in Canada now, and we just don't have unlimited resources. I will also add, when we started Pathways, there was a global consensus that if every country did their part in terms of emissions reduction, that of course Canada should do its part. And we felt very strongly that was, and we being the private sector, the oil sands companies, that we should in fact do our part. Because of what's happened in the world over the last couple of years, that has changed dramatically in the sense that there are very few countries anywhere in the world that are paying attention to emissions reduction. Canada is such a tiny contributor to in the grand scheme of things. Not only is it not, I think, appropriate use of our limited resources right now, but it also would be something that would be making virtually no difference to global emissions reduction at this point in time.
This woman deserves credit for saying out loud what many people have been thinking privately for years. The idea that governments can simply announce massive decarbonization plans and expect private industry to absorb endless costs, endless uncertainty, and endless political conditions while still remaining globally competitive, like it's insane. Canada cannot regulate its way into prosperity. They can't subsidize its way into prosperity, which is exactly what the government's doing. And that's the truth. You cannot pile on emissions caps, carbon costs, approval delays, methane rules, investment uncertainty, and political risk, and then act shocked when investors hesitate to commit billions of dollars. Like, do you really think that Alberta will be able to even find a private investor to invest in building a pipeline? Good luck. Our oil and gas sector is not the enemy of the economy. It is a major part of the economy. It funds pensions, public services, Indigenous partnerships, infrastructure, and hundreds of thousands of jobs across this country. There's a breaking point where ideological climate policy starts colliding with economic reality. Rhetoric versus reality. Private investors are not charities. They need certainty, they need profitability, they need stable rules that won't constantly change all the time, or hoops that they have to jump through just to get a project built. It's disgusting the way our government treats investment in Canada. And if Canada wants pipelines, LNG terminals, refineries, carbon capture projects, and energy infrastructure built, then Ottawa has to stop treating the private sector like an ATM machine for political announcements. Mark Carney's word salads and slogans do not build projects. You know what builds projects? Capital, workers, competitive conditions. That's what builds projects. And until Canada starts understanding that, we're going to keep making grand announcements while other countries attract the investment that we keep driving away. Elbows up. Thank you all for listening to this episode. If you like it, please share or subscribe. And I hope that you have a beautiful weekend, a beautiful Friday evening, and I will see you again on Monday.